Welcome to the Pigskin Party Podcast, the only podcast that combines real NFL analysis with a splash of pop culture and a dash of the random. Let's get this Pigskin Party started with your hosts, Brian McFadden and Will Southard.
Welcome, everybody, to the PPP. My name is Brian. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening or watching, rate and review, and, of course, tell a friend because that is how we grow this Pigskin Party. Joining me, like always, the Mac Jones to my Trey Lance.
Don't do that.
Mr. Will Southern.
Don't do that.
Will, how you doing, man?
I don't appreciate that comparison. Number one, I'm not as athletic as Mac Jones.
Fair.
And he's not athletic at all, actually. He's a big, fat white guy, which is what the Patriots like to play at quarterback. But hey, so I feel freshly drafted. I feel a draft in here.
Do you have AC this week?
I do have AC finally.
That's
so it is a little cooler in here and ready to dissect some good decisions and some questionable ones.
Awesome. Well, I couldn't have you uncomfortable for this post-draft coverage. We've been leading up to it for months. A lot to talk about today. We got an awesome show planned. We got some fantastic guests. So the fact that you are conditioned and cool, that makes me happy. So let's go ahead and bring in our guest. Our first guest, Nick Davis, better known as the Spoon of Zeke. Zeke Spoon on Twitter. Super excited. The what he does for the NFL Twitter community, especially with his follow trains. That's how we got connected. Knew we had to have him on the show. Also, a Cowboys fan.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to hate.
Wow.
How you doing, Nick? Ready to talk some draft?
Yeah, absolutely. Draft season always gets me excited. It's always great to look at the new shiny toys that are coming into your favorite team. So, I was kind of disappointed I didn't get a corner, but Micah Parsons is a nice little consolation prize, so I'm okay with that. But we'll get more into that. But great to have be on the show, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to go wrong with a player that is basically like a plug-and-play stud linebacker. So, yeah, like you said, not a bad consolation prize. Before we bring in our second guest, I did have a question. Obviously, I connected with you through the follow trains that you do on Twitter. What kind of got you into that? What inspired you to start that? And it's been very successful.
Well, I kind of started off just like trying to promote my own content. And then it kind of grew into its own thing. I saw how a lot of people were actually growing, and people were telling me, and they were letting me know like how much they appreciate what I was doing. And I try and put a lot of good karma in the world, and just helping everybody grow. That's what gets me really excited, is helping other people grow and see everybody connect and be able to talk all these different things. It's just really great.
I was at 830 followers for like 3 years until I met you. Now I'm over the 1K mark, man. Over the 1K. I owe you something. I don't know what it is, but I owe it to you.
No, just being on your show is great. I mean, when I started, I had a Twitter for about 7 years at 151, and I just saw how Levine's season does it for the NBA, and I was like, no one's doing it for the NFL, and I'm really into the NFL, and I was like, you know what? Screw it, I'll do it, and it just kind of became like a nice little habit of mine. I just wake up, pop it off, and just everybody gets help throughout the day, and I try and keep everybody in line.
Well, it has definitely helped both our individual accounts and the account for the Pigskin Party podcast. There was even a moment where Will messaged me and said, dude, we got to get Zeke Spoon. I'm like, I already got him. We're already booked. So super excited to have you. And you are a Cowboys fan, so we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But let's bring in our second guest, Tommy Yu, who is the host of the You Dive Deep podcast and, as it happens, an Eagles fan. Tommy, welcome to the PPP.
I am happy to be here. I love that you got this amazing person here who does all that awesome work with Twitter and things like that. Spoon of Zeke, as much as it pains me to say this, and I feel like Philadelphia is going to revoke my Philly card, every Cowboys fan I met are like the greatest hearted people, so it makes it really hard to talk crap because in this situation, I'm the trash, and I know it. I'm the bad guy. And so I'm like, no, Cowboys. I'm like, oh, God, here's the Philly of me. So it's great to be on a show with not just a Dallas fan, but someone as awesome as Spoon of Zeke. But that's all the compliments you're getting out from me. One last thing I want to bring up. Will, It hurt me when you said that Mac Jones was not athletic. Did you see how he strut down to the green room, to the draft room when he was announced? He was like sprinting down. I was like, yo, that's more athletic than anything I can do. That's how I look when I'm sitting on my couch trying to run over to the fridge during a commercial break watching football. But no, overall, I'm just happy to be here, guys. Your show is always really fun to listen to because you guys have like the perfect mix of like informational, but also weaving in personality. So I'm just happy to be here.
Informational.
That's what you would call my analysis. Personality.
That was right. Like the PC way to put it. Well, Tommy, super excited to have you on. Make sure to check out the You Dive Deep podcast. You mentioned that you're about to bring it back for season 2, right?
Yeah, season 2 just rolled out. I know I've taken a long break, but I guess this is where the football fan in me comes out. The NFL draft was happening, and I was like, no, I actually put in a lot of work during the NFL draft, actually. And I was like, I don't have enough time to balance one or the other, but it is premiering, but I'm just happy to be talking about sports. This is my happy place.
Well, we are happy to make you happy. As I mentioned earlier, Nick Spoon of Zeke is a Cowboys fan, and we will be going back into our Team Deep Dive series. However, we're going to mix it up this week. We're actually going to do the Cowboys Deep Dive for the Flavor of the Week. So if you're listening to the main episode now, make sure to stay tuned, and we'll drop the Flavor of the Week where we will go deep on the Dallas Cowboys. So this is our draft recap episode. We're going to go through some winners and losers. We're going to talk about some surprises and other things going on in the NFL. But first, let's jump into some news. And we have a guest that just popped in. It's a surprise guest, and there is a very specific reason that we have her on. So there are some QBs in the news, but there's one quarterback in particular that we're going to speak about first, and that is Tim Tebow. So Tim Tebow recently worked out for the Jaguars as a tight end. So, of course, we could not talk about Tim Tebow, any news related to Tebow, without bringing in Miss Lindsay Bebo, Broncos podcaster. Lindsay, how you feeling?
Okay. Hello.
Hello.
I just got back from the gym, so apologies for how I look right now.
No worries. You were eager to talk about your feelings on Tebow, as you have on this show before, and pit you up against Will. So let's talk about the actual news, and then I'd love to hear thoughts from you guys on it. So as I mentioned, Tebow did actually work out. This was the news before the news on Thursday. For the Jaguars as a tight end. Everybody was talking when he was a quarterback in the league, oh, he should play tight end. Why is he trying to play quarterback? Head coach Urban Meyer on Saturday said that they will revisit, because he was asked about Tebow, they will revisit the possibility of signing him in the near future. So, of course, I have to start with Lindsay on this. Lindsay, your thoughts, Tim Tebow back in the NFL?
It's a beep and joke. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And this just goes back to my whole argument about him, like, not understanding that you have every you have so many connections that you literally, your friend can coach a team and you can get a job on the basis of nothing. Yet you feel the need to speak on behalf of poor college kids everywhere. Like, it's insane to me that he's that, like, unself-aware about how the world works. It's a joke. It is an absolute joke, and I do think they'll sign him because Urban Meyer and him are really each other's only friends, besides the Duck Dynasty ass clowns.
First of all, I love that you self-edited, but thank you. That saves Anthony some work. What is your retort, Will?
I mean, dude's got to get paid, right? Like, number one.
He gets paid like $50,000 to talk about his love for Jesus. He doesn't need the $400,000 or whatever that he'd get being a veteran in the NFL. He doesn't need to get paid.
Did you just
Churches
say...
pay him just to go and pretend that he's this great Christian.
Okay. Well, he just got married. So if that's anything like what I know about being married, I would want to find a job too pretty fast. So I'm just saying, like, here's the thing, right? If anybody's going to give him a chance in the NFL, it's going to be Urban Meyer. He probably realizes that probably should have stayed in the NFL, probably should have listened to people tell him to go play another position. I mean, he looks in shape, right? I don't think, you know, if you look at his skill set, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what
he's
qualifies
33 and hasn't played in the NFL since 2013.
Breathe.
And played a quarterback.
What I'm saying is, I don't really. I mean, I really don't see him being competitive. And if he can be, and they can evaluate him like on a objective basis, I don't know why you wouldn't, but I just don't really see how he can bring it at this age, being out of the sport that long, not really like ever working out his hands. You know what I mean? He's never really like rehearsed that position. So I just don't. I mean, I think it's just a flash in the pan news thing. I don't really think it's going to work out. But if it does, God bless him.
Rodgers taking the headlines away like an hour after the news came out was amazing. Oh my God!
We're gonna talk about that. Yeah, Rodgers took the thunder away from Tebow, but that's really why I brought this up. Besides the fact that I wanted to get a little Lindsey Tebow vitriol, as I wanted to get everybody's thoughts. Is this just a joke? Is this really is this actually going to happen, or is it just like a publicity thing and then he's gone? Tommy, I'd love to hear from you on this.
Normally, I'm really long-winded because I love to talk, but I'm going to keep it very short and something Lindsay already mentioned, and and it's a fact, and you guys could interpret it however you will. He will be 34 by the time the NFL season starts. That's all I have to say.
And what?
And he's never played tight end.
He still gets he still gets his morning woods. He didn't use them until he was like 31. So I mean, he's got a lot of pin-up energy left from the last like 20 years of his adolescence. It's got a big battery, put it that way. He's got 2 big batteries that hang out underneath his cup that he's got to fuel
Nick, do you think
passion.
there's any validity to this, or is it just like a flash in the pan news that got immediately replaced by bigger news?
Definitely flash in the pan. He should have done this when he started in the NFL. Everybody asked him to be a tight end, and now Urban Meyer's back. I mean, the most I see him being is like maybe like a chaplain of the team. And like kind of like motivating the guys. Like that's really about it. Yeah, that's all I got.
He'll be the new Jack Easterby, team chaplain who rises.
Whatever. Yeah, I mean that's all he could be good for. He's great at motivating men. That's what I will say. He is great at motivating men. I mean, he got Aaron Hernandez and all those guys like together to win a championship. That was pretty impressive.
He couldn't convince Hernandez not to murder some people.
Urban Meyer. Let me just be clear. I dislike Urban Meyer as much as I dislike Tim Tebow. I think they're both jackasses. They deserve each other.
I mean,
they got nothing better to do to be together. So
apparently they're neighbors. I just found out they live next door to each other because they legitimately have no other friends.
I mean, when you look at the Jaguars depth chart, though, right, at tight end especially, you got Tyler Eifert, who we can kind of all agree is not really a thing, right? Like he's not. He's like a memory. Was he ever a thing? I mean, he was okay.
Him and Dalton had one season where I think he led the league in touchdowns for tight ends. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got that. You've got Chris Manhers, Luke Farrell, Tyler Davis, and James O'Shaughnessy.
The Goon Squad.
The
Goon Squad.
Exactly. So you don't have anybody at tight end.
Tebow might fit in the Goon Squad.
That's what I'm saying. So like there might be, and who knows, dude? Like they work him out at tight end. He could do some really weird things if you actually bring him in for some gadgetry. I mean, he does have.
Like he was supposed to on the Jets. How did that work out?
He does have.
That was the whole thing. That was the whole thing. He was going to come in for those special packages, and how'd that work out?
Listen, don't be jealous of Tebow's special package, Lindsay.
I'm not. I can promise you it's not anything impressive.
Special package, tight end, all related to Tim Tebow. Let's keep it rolling. Lindsay, we are going to talk about the Rodgers news now, and there is one team that they're being linked to. Do you want to stick around and talk about that?
Yes, I do.
I figured you did. All right, so the whole Tebow news lasted, all of like 2 seconds? And we
That's 1 second longer than he did after 20 years of waiting to get married after puberty.
His wedding night was a flash in the pan, to say the least. Really, the only reason we wanted to bring up the Tebow news is because of Will and Lindsay, or else we would have jumped right into this much more pressing news, and that is that news broke Thursday. This is the day of the first round, that Packers quarterback and reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers is so unhappy with the situation in Green Bay that he did not want to return to the team at all for 2021. He's got his Jeopardy thing. That's going well. Apparently, he's using that as leverage anyway. It's come out on Thursday that he just flat out doesn't want to play with him. Started with Green Bay trading up for Jordan Love in the first round of last year's draft in 2020. He's unhappy with his current contract, has been negotiating an extension, but apparently they have not been very forthcoming with giving them the kind of extension that he wants. And multiple reports state that Rodgers wants GM Brian Gutekunst out as a condition of his return. So the first thing I want to start with Lindsay on this, because I know that you are pressed for time and you're just popping in for a few minutes. There are two teams really that he's basically said he wants to play for, or that they might agree, because he said the Niners too, but I don't think they want to trade him to an NFC team. And one is your Denver Broncos. So do you think, and I saw your video and I retweeted it with your appeal to Shailene Woodley, which was hilarious. Yeah. But do you think this is realistic? Obviously you want it.
I think it's happening. Gun to my head, I think it's happening.
You really do think it's happening?
I do think it's happening. I think that, and again, maybe I'm reading too much into things, but I think the fact that we didn't take a quarterback in the first round, the fact that we took a running back in the second round, like, why? It just seems like it's a conspiracy theorist in me, but it looks like, hey, we're trying to just bulk up everything as possible so that every side of the ball, like, you're just come, be Peyton Manning, do whatever the hell you want with it and take it and go. I think George Payton, like, when he's been asked, he's been pretty sly and there's been like a wink or a smile. Like, I think there's something there. The only caveat is that because there is that no trade clause, there isn't a no trade clause in his contract. I just worry they're going to say, we'll send you to the Miami Dolphins, and then he'll say, never mind, and retire. That's the only concern I have. But we are perfect for him. And Shailene does not want to live in Las Vegas. There's just no way.
You think she wants to live in Denver?
Oh yeah, she's all about nature. Apparently she has a house in Boulder.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. But literally, like, the Broncos' current offensive depth chart is every quarterback's wet dream. Like, there is not a miss on there.
No, I agree. And we've talked about on this podcast that we think that, especially on offense, they're a quarterback away. You know our feelings on Drew Lock, that he certainly is not the answer in Denver. And getting a quarterback like Rodgers, I mean, they could be Super Bowl contenders in the AFC with that move. Nick, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think there is any chance at all of this happening? How realistic? I've seen conflicting reports. Some said, oh, yeah, the Packers are coming to terms with it. And then there's a lot of reports where they said, absolutely no way in hell are we trading him. What is your take on this?
I mean, the way that the news has been talking about him, it sounds like he's like a free agent, like he's getting to pick his litter. But I think the GM's going to kind of stick it to him and send him somewhere. You know, if he does get sent to Miami, if I was Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't retire. I mean, if you guys sent to Miami for 2 or whatever, that would be a great place to go because they're a quarterback away also from basically going to an AFC championship game. I think Aaron Rodgers could really take him over the top. I think it's like millionaires fighting millionaires. You know, the GM is in the fight now. Like, what player have you ever heard be like, I don't want to work for this guy anymore? Like the GM, haven't seen that usually, especially from your $100 million quarterback. That's a big issue. I think they're going to force him to play or to retire to stick it to him.
Do you think he would? I mean, I'll ask you this, Tommy. Do you think Aaron Rodgers, reigning MVP, would actually retire and go host Jeopardy when he still has prime years left of his football career?
I would love to answer that, but I see Lindsay very ecstatic to jump in.
No,
I'm trying to go around the horn, but let's go to Lindsay.
No, before I forget. But think about it, Nick. So you're saying they would rather have him retire, which they would get nothing, than get like 3 first-round picks and a really good player?
He would have to pay, I think it's about $35 million back to Green Bay if he does retire in the middle of his contract.
I mean, they said no to San Francisco and they threw everything but the kitchen sink at him. And they took also Jordan Love last year, who was not worth a first-round pick. I saw him completely fail at trying to pitch the ball. It's embarrassing. They're on completely different levels, but I think that the GM has some kind of like power trip. Like it's almost like Michael Jordan and Jerry Krause. It's weird. Like that stuff doesn't happen in the NFL. Those guys shouldn't even be talking to each other, but you've seen how he hasn't been supported. If they got one other wide receiver, they could have been like so much better, but they chose to spend their first round pick on Jordan Love, who wasn't active for most games.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Tommy. Sorry, I just had to get that out before I forgot.
All right, now that is something I could definitely talk about. So here's my little soapbox real quick, defending Aaron Rodgers, because there's so many people saying that aren't very, and I don't want to be demeaning. I'm not saying you're not educated about it, but here's my perspective. So everyone's saying, oh, Aaron Rodgers has his panties in a knot because he's getting upset about the whole Jordan Love thing, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's break it down and exactly what Nick said about this whole power struggle that the GM of the Packers have. So there's this report that came out earlier today that said Rodgers was upset that they cut Kumaro literally a day after they said they liked him, right? So I went back because there's a lot of narratives, and I like to do facts. I don't want to hear what other people say. I went back to look at their roster at that point, and they legit had Darius Shepard, Malik Taylor, and a couple of other guys where I was like, wait, why didn't they just cut them? So I know that's a very specific example, but if you're a GM and you are trying to make roster cuts and, trying to save money or whatever, well, boom, here are some players that you probably could have cut instead, but for some reason, I'm not trying to start a conspiracy theory and being like, hey, I'm going to teach Aaron Rodgers what's up and cut him. But then also, you also have to look at what Tampa Bay is doing for Tom Brady. They're rolling out the red carpet. They're literally doing everything. Oh, you want more receivers? Bang, bang, bang. You want a running back? All right, let's go get Lenny. Oh, our defense is already elite. Let's do literally everything you want. And then the Packers over here are like, and I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but Aaron Rodgers strategically, because he's a smart guy, released this news on draft day, stole all the news. The spotlight is on the Packers now. When they're on the clock, that's what everyone is talking about. And what did they do? Oh, they piss off Aaron Rodgers even more. And they're like, yo, let's reach for a corner because why not? And even in that moment, and this is my conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, the Packers know everyone is looking at them with a magnifying glass when they're on the clock. Are they finally just going to do something? Just to be like, here, Aaron, this might not be the best answer, but let me help you out? Nope. They're still like, nah, we are in power. Let's go do something else now. So that's my long pitch of saying it would be different if he was just unhappy about the certain situation, but it's almost like he straight up and came out saying, I don't like this GM. And regardless if they, quote unquote, make it work or not, at that point, there's no return. There's no respect for one another. So even if they force one or the other, that's just conjecture. Let's just see what's happening on paper, and that's what I'm seeing, that power struggle. And as soon as you kind of cross that line, regardless of where he gets traded, regardless of whatever, it's just really hard for me to see him continue to stay a part of the Green Bay Packers, which also they've been very spoiled, going Favre to Rodgers. And isn't it ironic how they spoiled both of their tenures at the end around, like, it's unbelievable to me. They
So here's
luck
the
into
thing,
that,
right?
and then they do that.
Here's the
Aaron,
thing, right?
okay,
Wait,
let's not defend Brett Favre.
wait. So Brett Favre, number one, is a garbage human being. That's not what we're talking about. So here's what we're talking about. To your point about what Tampa did for Tom Brady, Bruce Arians despises Antonio Brown. Like, despises. On like a, I don't even want to say the word level, right? That guy. Hates him.
Wait, how
right?
do you know this?
Because he flat out said, I will never sign Antonio Brown. He is not like a personality fit for our team. Like, I don't want that in my locker room.
Yeah.
Like, he hated him. Where is Antonio Brown right now? Catching touchdowns from Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, right?
And then
like
finally re-signed, yeah.
And, I mean, so to that point also, they tried to kind of make Tom do their offense when he first got there, and what happened, right? They didn't start out so hot. And finally they're like, maybe we should just let this dude, like, do what he does, right, with Byron Leftwich. And I'm not talking about, this not the Tampa thing, it's not the Tom thing. But let's flash over to Aaron Rodgers, and let's take a layman's perspective for a second, right? Like a casual NFL fan perspective. Allen Lazard, I think we can all agree, is pretty good, right? Devontae Adams is probably top 3 receiver in the league. He's amazing. Outside of that, Allen Lazard is hurt a lot. You know, they had a surprisingly good season from who's that?
MBS.
Cat? No,
Valdez
not him.
Scantling.
Like the tight end cat who caught like 3 touchdowns a game out of nowhere.
Tunyon.
Oh, yeah,
Tunyon.
Robert Tunyon.
Yeah, Tunyons of Funyon or whatever. He did all right. But outside of that, like, MVS is not really, you know, he's not like a number 2 number. I mean, he's spot good at times, right? They don't have that much around them, right? They bring back Aaron Jones. They let go of Williams. The Packers are going to suck without Aaron Rodgers. Like, really, really bad. He is good, right? I mean, he is your franchise. And if you're going to do that to the guy, like, who's got, you know, probably 5-ish, like, probably MVP calendar years left, like, that's a very willing, calculated risk. And I think you're an idiot if you're the owner of the Green Bay Packers, which is like a shareholder type system board.
Yeah, they don't have an owner right now.
But so I just don't understand. Like any other team would figure this out, right?
Yeah.
Any other team.
Well, except Houston.
Yeah.
And that's
a little
my
different.
Comparison.
That's a little
my thoughts
different.
here. The teams are different. And they're different because Green Bay has gone to the NFC Championship 2 years in a row. I get that. They have a much better infrastructure in place. Even without an owner, they've obviously been successful. LaFleur's had great success there. They've been on the verge of the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. But here's where I make the comparison. We have been witnessing over the past few years a shift in player empowerment that didn't exist. It's been in the NBA for years. It's finally getting over to the NFL. Once your quarterback, and it was Watson before the allegations, and it's Rodgers now, gets to the point where they just refuse to play, either you find a way to make that quarterback happy, which is the most important position in sports, or you find a way to get as much as you can for them. So far, Houston completely dropped the ball on that, even before the allegations came out, and that's a whole different scenario now. But with Rodgers, how do you make him happy? I don't think there's much you can do. If you had a shot to make him happy, you still didn't draft a wide receiver in the first round. So are you going to force him to play? Either he retires or he just doesn't care and goes and just plays poorly for your team. It's a lose-lose situation. Just like Houston, they should do something. You either need to just bow down and give him what he wants if you want a shot at Super Bowl contention, or you just get a king's ransom. You take the best offer that's given. Maybe that's Denver. The conspiracy theories around taking a cornerback for Denver as well is that they did that so that they could trade him, so that Green Bay wanted a defensive back, so they said, hey, George, draft a defensive back at 9 instead of a quarterback because we're going to give you – I don't know. That's a little crazy, but my point is something needs to be done. And simply standing your ground on the front office side is a losing battle no matter how you spin it.
Yeah, well, and especially, too, when it comes to quarterbacks like Russell Wilson. I mean, it was on a very smaller level because he never threatened not to play, but him saying – I'm getting hurt because you won't give me an offensive line. Like, this is affecting my health. So I feel that, the quarterback should have, does Green Bay have a good offensive line?
Yeah, they've lost some players recently, but they've historically had a good line.
Yeah, okay, but just in general, like with all these, I am so for these quarterbacks as long as it's for the right reasons. And I think Watson, Wilson, and Rodgers, I think they've all had valid reasons. But I'm all for this because I think this Packers GM seems like a douche, and it's just a slap in the face to the fans too.
He's got a great first name. Let's be clear here, but yes, I'm not crazy about how the way GM Brian Gutekunst has been running that team, at least with regards to Aaron Rodgers. Well, Lindsay, thanks for popping in. You said it all. We had to get your Tebow take. You have a very important place to be. Do you want to talk about your future Horizon Broncos podcast?
Yeah, I don't. I'm still basically Broncos Brawl is no more. And I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next. But
to be fair, the whole Brawl network, collapsed, so it was not Broncos Brawl specifically.
Yes, but I do still have the RSS stream. So if you want to stay, what would it be? Stay up to date on what's next. You can still follow it on social Broncos Brawl on Twitter, as well as in wherever you find or listen to your podcast. And I still don't know what I'm doing. We're still trying to figure it out, but there will be something, I'd say, within the next month.
Awesome. Are you ready to drop the name? Because I like the name. Or are you want to keep that a secret for now?
Okay, I don't know if it's for sure.
Okay, fair enough.
Like, I'm 99% sure.
You know that we'll have Lindsay back on. Stay tuned here. We'll make sure to plug whatever her new Broncos podcast is. Lindsay, thanks again for popping in and throwing some Tebow hate Will's way. He didn't reciprocate it the way I thought, but hey, it was still great to hear from you.
He knows I was right. Tommy, Nick, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you guys off. You were wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Lindsay Bebo, as we said, we will keep you up to date on what her next situation is with her Broncos podcast. So, we've talked some news, we talked some Tebow, we talked some Rodgers, but this is the draft recap episode. So let's go ahead and jump in. As we mentioned, we're doing a deep dive on the Cowboys. We're going to move that to the flavor of the week so we can dedicate the rest of this episode to the NFL draft from 2021. So the first thing I want to start with, guys, because we're going to talk about winners and losers, but I want to start about asking you guys about surprises, draft day surprises. So do you have like a top, what shocked you? What did you not see coming? Will, I'd start with you on this. What was something that resonated with you as a shocker? First round, any round, just what stood out to you?
Man, I guess, we're going to talk about it in our winners and losers section, so obviously I don't want to recap anything that's going to happen there, but I would just say, just in general, the entire nation was surprised at the Trey Lance pick, I think. Not surprised like unfathomably, like, because that was the that was the news going in. It was between Mac and Trey, and who knows? Time will tell. I do feel like when you think about what San Fran gave up, right, and you think about that, and you think about who Trey Lance is as a prospect, not what he will be in the NFL, but like who he was as a prospect, it seems like a haul and a reach, especially when you probably could have given that same package up to get like Aaron Rodgers or something else, right? So who knows, but remains to be seen if he works out to a starting NFL quarterback and he's he passes the Dalton test or the Derek Carr test now. I think we'll be in a good spot, but it was a surprising pick for sure.
Tommy, what is it? Is there anything that stood out to you as a shocker when you watched the draft?
Absolutely. This sounds really dumb, but of course, Eagles fan, and of course, I'm sure Nick down there will also agree. I pay attention to a lot of things that happen in the NFC East regardless, because it's such a crap of a division, so if anyone does anything, I have to jot notes. But this sounds really dumb, but Gettleman traded down. It's almost been a meme within the NFC East community. He's been a GM for, I think, like almost a decade, like 8 years, and he's never, ever traded down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anytime I see mock drafts and something happens, people are commenting, oh, that would never happen. He never trades down. This man traded down twice. Traded down once, obviously, in the first round with Chicago, and traded down from 11 and got a haul. Let's talk about that later. But then he traded down again in the second round with the 42nd pick. So I know it sounds silly, and it's just something fun to talk about being an NFC East fan and stuff. But when I saw Gettleman making all these moves, I was like, all right, okay, I guess old dogs can learn new tricks. I respect that. So this narrative of saying just because it didn't happen in the past doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. And I feel like this is a perfect example why people always say, no, this is concrete, this will never happen. And then the old dinosaur pulls out something.
I think you're in a really good...
about it. He was asked, and he said, actually, I've tried to before. I'm not going to get fleeced. Get off my lawn, so, but he claimed that he was, and he actually, he stuck to his words and did it twice.
I feel like the Eagles are in a really good position to, like, fully evaluate Hurts this year, and if that doesn't work out, pivot next year in the draft, right? They gave him Devonta Smith, which, big fan of his play, remains to be seen what happens.
Cowboys gave him Devonta Smith. Well, that was surprising.
So no, it's a really good. It's Hurts season, as they say. So we'll see.
SZN.
That's it.
How about you, Nick? You feel free to comment on Tommy's NFC East observation, but I'd love to hear from you as well. What some surprises you saw in the draft?
I was ultra surprised to see the trade in the NFC East, like at the beginning of the first round, like at the 10 pick. That was very shocking. And then also one thing that shocked me about the draft prospects, what happened to the excitement of getting drafted, man? Like, I barely saw, like, the first, 10 guys get, ultra excited. Like, they were just kind of like, oh, I'm expected to be there. Dude, like, your whole life changed. Your whole family's life changed. Like, why aren't you, more pumped about it? Like, today I saw, I think he was, a 5th or 6th round guy. He got drafted, walked outside, and all the neighborhood kids came out. It was like, yeah, it's awesome. You got, that is what the draft is all about. Bringing the people around you that are excited for your success. So I was kind of disappointed, Trevor Lawrence. It was like being at a golf show. They're like, oh, good job, great job. Come on, guys. This is the NFL draft. Some people don't ever make it. So that was one thing that really shocked me about the draft. But I'll definitely get into my steals with the winners that we talk about later.
And I've seen a number of videos start to get released on Twitter from the various programs with these specific videos, but they're all later round picks. Like Matt Rule had one for the Panthers where he called some long snapper, and the long snapper thought he was calling him to sign him as an undrafted free agent, and Matt Rule's like, no, dude, I'm signing you. Like, that was cool. You saw the emotion behind it, but they're all later round picks. The first round guys, from what I saw, were just like, yeah, okay. Except for Justin Fields. He was pissed. He was certainly upset. Yeah, he had such visible emotion, understandably, to drop down to 11. On the Mac Jones thing, so there was a number of interviews, obviously, that they did with Shanahan afterwards, and he said that Jones was actually never really in play. And that was something that whoever decided to come up with the idea and run with it, and the rest of the media and NFL Twitter ran with it. But he said he wanted a mobile quarterback from the start, and Mac Jones really didn't fit the mold of what he wants to do with his offense, and that Trey Lance was really kind of the target for a while. So
that's
quick,
what you would say if you draft Trey Lance, right? Like, did you also hear that like half the 49ers roster called Shanahan to tell him that they were alive on Sunday, which is the best thing.
Organized by Kittle.
Yeah, I saw Kittle was kind of the
people's
he
champion.
called everybody.
For those that were not listening, when asked if Jimmy G would still be on the roster come Sunday, he said, well, there's no guarantee that any of us will be alive on the planet. So that was a little foreboding. But yes, hey, we're still all here. We're recording a podcast. We got through the draft. Thanks for nothing, Kyle Shanahan.
I think it was all just like a smokescreen with like Mac Jones. Like, I was just sitting there being like, there has to be like some kind of like rumor that goes out that makes everybody like freak out, and it ended up being Mac Jones this year. Like, he just didn't compare to the other quarterbacks, and honestly, him falling to like Belichick, that's like the perfect Belichick move. Like, everybody's thinking like, oh man, what chess pieces is he gonna move? But instead he just sat back with his dog and was like, I'm gonna take Mac Jones. Watch what happens.
One last thing I wanted to add though is this offseason, especially because of the pandemic, one thing I've realized is the media and reporters just make things up. Like, that was evident to me when J.J. Watt signed with Arizona. When J.J. Watt was leaving and everyone's like, oh, where is he going to go? And they was top 5 list, and all reporters like, oh, it's guaranteed here. And then he picked Arizona, and he was on no one's top 5 list. I was like, wait, where did all these rumors and sources come from? Were these all made up? And, of course, everyone's like, oh, they make it up. But in my heart, I was like, no, these reporters know more than me. Like, I might think this is smart, but they don't know. They know way more than me. But then when that happened, I was like, what? And then so when this Trey Lance versus Mac Jones stuff started to come up, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not even reading this. And it was like deteriorating to me because I was like, in my head, I was like, how funny would it be if literally it's not Mac Jones or Trey Lance and it was Fields the whole time, but everyone was just making things up. But it's kind of funny in this context now where he did come out and say, no, Mac Jones, not that he's a bad player, but he wasn't fitting what we were looking for. We're looking for a mobile quarterback. So in my head, I was like, okay, well, here's another time where I can say, look, not everything was made up, but these people are just running with it for a good storyline. So now anytime I hear anything, I feel like I have that tinfoil hat being like, well, what is the source? Are they just saying a lead or I've heard or use those weird keywords? I'm like, nothing is true now.
And you have to keep in mind how much of this is actually fed by the teams. So there was a number of smoke screens. We want to talk about Dallas. Apparently, when Jerry Jones met on Zoom with Micah Parsons, McCarthy wasn't even on the call. Like, McCarthy had no idea that they were targeting him, all in an effort to uphold the secrecy. So how much of this is teams feeding misinformation? I can't imagine why the 49ers would feed Mac Jones. I think that was a little different. But you can't trust what the team say. You can't trust any of this stuff.
The only steal that I saw and was like, nope, they just got stolen, was the Broncos moving ahead of the Dolphins for Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I was upset about that. I wanted Williams.
I mean, because you saw that and you're like, oh, man, like that, you know what I mean? Like, it goes to show you that if you want your guy, you have to be aggressive to go get your guy. And I know we'll talk about this in the section coming up here shortly, but oh my God, standing ovation to the Bears for finally doing something to propel their franchise forward. I think in 10 years, we're going to look back at like a defining moment in the league. The Bears, finally making Allen Robinson happy and getting a quality quarterback prospect in the building, because good Lord, they could have been the Broncos.
So that's my biggest surprise. Oh, go ahead, Tommy.
Oh, no. One last thing I wanted to add, and I know I already said that, is I was looking at the doc and I saw it wasn't going to come up, so I definitely want to get it in. Nick, I love you, and I know I said I was done giving you compliments, but I do love you because the Cowboys did that deal with the Eagles. So I know you said there's no steals, but you're lying. The Eagles sniped Devonta Smith from the Giants so bad to the point where they're like, oh, crap. All right, well, now I guess we're just going to trade away our pick now kind of thing. And so, no, I think that trade, I'm not saying that was a good move or a bad move, but I thought it just was so gratifying the Eagles getting to screw the Giants one more time when we all thought that, you know, the Eagles like benching players in that last game, how we were screwing the Giants there. And thanks to the Cowboys, we're able to do it one more time.
And also,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I just about that Giants pick. I am not like I went to Florida. I love Kadarius Toney. I hate him at the Giants offense because they're not going to use him. It was a really stupid pick, and I felt really bad for him because he's not going to play out like they think he's going to play out in the Giants offense.
I don't see Devonta being a steal either, just because of his body size. Like, he's going to be taking a lot of damage. He is very fast, but everybody runs a 4.3 in the NFL. And I see that he slid, and there was other receivers taking ahead of him when he was like a surefire pick, either him or Jamar Chase. Like, that's all I heard in the mock drafts. But, you know, he slid to Philadelphia. Yeah, you guys got a playmaker, but, you know,
Anthony,
I feel
timestamp this. Timestamp this. So in about at the end of this season, I'll be like, "Yo, Spoon Zeke, is this you?" So just for Anthony, yo, timestamp.
I will
Hot
eat my
takes
words.
done
That's
cold.
fine. I hope they do, because that means there'll be better football. But you know, I just see Devonta Smith kind of getting lost in the sauce, almost like a Tavon Austin. Like, he's such a chess piece that they don't know what to do with him. I don't see Philadelphia being the great situation for him.
So I got a couple comments, and then
anybody.
we'll jump into the actual winners and losers discussion from the draft. First, is that trade, I 100% agree. It reverberated the rest of the draft because I do think the Giants would have taken Smith. And since they didn't, they were willing to trade back, and the Bears got up. And if Justin Fields ends up being one of those high-caliber quarterbacks, that could be the move we end up talking about. But what surprised me the most, even more than that, although that was pretty shocking, that might have been number 2, was the fact that the Broncos did not take a quarterback when both Justin Fields, and I'm not saying Mac Jones with it, Justin Fields just by himself was there at 9, and he was coming out of high school. It was him and Trevor Lawrence neck and neck. He beat Lawrence in the college football playoff. He's had amazing pro days. He didn't really do that much to get knocked down. The Broncos are there at 9. They know they don't want Drew Lock. They've been looking around for other quarterbacks, and they chose to pass on him. So you could talk about conspiracy theories with the Packers, whatever, but that was the biggest surprise for me, especially in round 1. Yeah. So since we've already kind of leaked into
let's
that,
do it. Wait, no, let's go into losers. I'm going to go first. The
you want to
Broncos.
start with the losers.
The
Okay.
Broncos. Like, here's the thing, right? Their best move was stealing Williams for Miami, for sure. But you're already paying Melvin Gordon, right? And so you've got that on the books. Surtain is great, but he's alongside Darby and Fuller, who, they got, 1-year deals and that kind of stuff, but they got a stacked secondary. And that you could say that this is what you get from playing the Chiefs, right? You just need to overload your secondary. But they took a D3 lineman who had great workouts, and they got some decent value in the back end of the draft. But I don't think, the Broncos, if you read the reviews and you look at the picks, it was okay. But how do you not address your quarterback situation? They played a wide receiver at quarterback for the first time in that kid's life last year. Do we not remember? I mean, that was a little special.
He played quarterback in college, but he wasn't.
Yeah, sure.
He was on the scout team.
Did you see him throw? He threw like 3 passes the entire game.
Poor guy.
And that was a COVID
Kendall
thing,
Hinton.
and we'll go with that. But Drew Lock is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Right?
And by the way, in case anyone thinks otherwise, getting Teddy Bridgewater is not making a move at quarterback.
No.
Just so we're clear. So
they better have Aaron Rodgers in the back, in their back seat or something, because I don't understand the Surtain pick. Let him go to Dallas where he was supposed to go, right? Go fix your damn franchise. If I was Cortland Sutton or who's the other cat?
Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, that guy. Jerry Jeudy or Noah Fant. What are you doing, man? I don't know. So that's my rant on the Broncos. I just think it was one of the worst worst moves of the draft to ignore Justin Fields, both because of the need and how good of a quarterback I think Fields is going to be in the NFL. Like you absolutely blew it. You didn't even have to trade anywhere. You just pick him. All you got to do is pick him, and you didn't pick him. What is wrong with you? All right, I'm done.
Guys, any comments?
I think Surtain was an okay pick, but they did. I think when round 1 hit, they thought that they had Aaron Rodgers in the bag, and I think that they were like ready to just keep moving in that direction. But as time progressed, the Packers just kept backing off, and they're kind of like, "What the hell, dude?" Like, I feel like I said, it's like a power trip for the GM. Like, absolute power corrupts absolute, and I feel like it kind of went to that guy's head. I think he's kind of like sticking it to the league, and yeah, that's about it for the Broncos. I mean, Surtain's a good player. Definitely wanted him on the Cowboys, but Broncos took him, so we just got a consolation prize.
Yeah, and my quick thing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say my quick thing is that kind of like what Will said that I didn't even think about until now, but he makes a great point. Is Fangio's defensive minded. Broncos defense is not an issue. They're pretty strong. And just like how all their offensive players are like, wait a second, you got Bridgewater and we still have Locke. Oh, wait, Fields, maybe. Who knows what's going to happen? But not just the offensive players being frustrated. Think of the defense, dude. You put in great work, hold the other offense to 3 and out. You hustle to the bench and you're like, oh, yeah, we did awesome. Drew Lock threw some interception. You go right back out there. You're still trying to catch your breath and you're like, hey, coaching staff, so you're telling me I got to play with that again? You could have gotten me in. So I feel like in a grander context to kind of like what Will is saying is that's a great point. Like the morale of the and I know that's being dramatic, but just think about it. I also had Justin Fields as my number 2 locked and loaded quarterback. It wasn't even close in my opinion. But then, like you said, all you have to do is pick them. But now they're like, oh, we could have had blah, blah. That's just a badly run franchise, friend.
There was so much speculation that they would actually trade up with a team like maybe Carolina, like maybe Detroit, who are a little less quarterback needy at this point, and they didn't even have to do that. Like you guys said, Fields fell to them in their lap, and they're like, no, I'm good. Let's take a corner to get some additional depth. So I wanted to start with winners, but Will's like, no, let's start negatively. So we're going to go around and give our first list of losers since Will so graciously decided to jump into that side of the pool. Nick, we will start with you. What is a team that you felt was a loser after the draft?
Oh my gosh. Arizona. I was really mad that they took another linebacker. I mean, they took Isaiah Simmons, Hassan Reddick, Budda Baker even was in that kind of tweener stage. But I'm sick and tired of Steve Keim drafting these puzzle pieces. Like, you draft too many puzzle pieces, not all of them are going to fit, man. And Zaven Collins is kind of, I thought he was kind of more like a middle linebacker, but they're going to be using him as a chess piece also. I think it's just a really bad play by Keim. It doesn't make any sense. At that point, there were some receivers available that you could have a second guy, a really dominant second guy. I don't really know. I'm sick and tired of those first round picks that are being spent on guys like Isaiah Simmons. Last year, he was one of the best graded linebackers that came in, and now I find out in Arizona he's a free safety. What is this, dude? Come on.
Well, that was his thing, though, right? Is he played like every, you know what I mean? He was one of those Swiss Army defensive players.
I don't need a bunch of Swiss Army knives. I need specialization. I need pass rushers. I need guys that can stop the run, guys that can drop and cover 2, guys that can cover zone.
They badly needed defensive backs.
And you know who they took?
Yeah.
You know who they took? Marco Wilson, who should not have been drafted, bro. He was the worst thing to hit Florida defensive backs since I don't even know when. He threw a shoe and cost us the LSU game.
That's the shoe guy. Yeah.
And not only that, he's the definition of lost. Losing the ball in the air. He got burned on every play. His dad is a joke. The 4th round? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, who's doing the scouting there? They got Robert Ndipchi a couple years back, and that guy was an epic fail. And it's just dude, you guys have some great players that are there right now, and J.J. Watt came there, but man, who was scouting? I don't know. This draft for me for Arizona is just like, dude, I'm out. I'm out on Arizona. Like, I don't really care what they do because I don't believe that they're actually going to be able to build a team and have success for multiple years at a time.
By the way, funny enough, Kim Diche just signed with the Seahawks. Yeah, he took the whole year off. Hasn't played since 2019.
Don't care.
Seahawks. Yeah, I know.
Non-starter.
They still have DeAndre.
Yeah, well, he could be going to that offense still has, but they could have used another wide receiver. There was a lot of directions they could go. I agree with you. Xavier Collins has some promise, but I don't know if that was the spot for him. Tommy, how about you? What is a team that you saw as a loser after the draft?
Oh, man, I know I kind of talked about it, so I'll keep it a little bit shorter, maybe touch base on less of the meme. But it's elephant in the room, guys. When their draft started, this team was already the loser because of the news that broke. And it's the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers kind of saying it. But I'll be less memey and be more realistic. Let's even look at their draft. So Aaron Rodgers is really, really upset with you. Whatever. I don't want to take a wide receiver. That's fine. Well, it's not really. But let's just talk about the pick that they took. And it took Stokes, who is he's a very fast human being, yes. But as a cornerback, his fluidity and being able to change it just didn't work. And in my eyes, I was like, wait, and I'm not a scout by any means. And so I'm sure the Green Bay department knows more than I do, which is very fair. But when I was looking, I was like, there's so many cornerbacks you could have taken if you even wanted to stay in that kind of category. And then they follow that up by drafting, in my opinion, interior lineman / center with, of course, Josh Myers. And then, in my opinion, once again, Kansas City then took Creed Humphrey, who I believe was the better prospect. And then finally, in your third pick of the draft, you finally get a wide receiver. But that at that point, when conspiracy hat back on, that's almost like, how can we really rub more salt in the wounds of Aaron Rodgers? Oh, okay, you know what would be funny? Let's draft a wide receiver, but not until the third round. And it's going to be hilarious. This is going to be great. So it's almost like too much, too late. But I don't want to besmirch Amari Rodgers. That's the wide receiver they ended up taking. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but it's the fact that, can you really say too much too late if Amari Rodgers is the one that you took in the third round and you're trying to please Rodgers? Like, I don't understand what they're trying to do. So if anything, this entire draft night, in my opinion, even if the Aaron Rodgers news did not come out, I would still be like, what in the world are they doing? And are they trying to actually make Aaron Rodgers want to leave? So in my opinion, big losers.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue with that. I think we can all agree that they were set up for failure, and the long Hail Mary shot they might have had was to draft a stud wide receiver in the first round to pair with Devontae Adams, at least look like they're trying to placate Rodgers, and they're like, nope, let's take a defensive back who might have some physical tools but is nowhere polished and probably shouldn't have been taken in the first round. So my first loser is one of the teams I also pegged as a loser during free agency, and it's a team that I'm having less and less faith in, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm just not a fan. First of all, I'm starting to have very little faith that John Gruden is a great coach. He won one Super Bowl with the team that was basically that he inherited, and everything has gone down since then. Signed a crazy 10-year deal with Las Vegas and really has not been able to show much for it. And Mike Mayock, who had lots of credentials as a media expert for the draft on NFL Network and has been the GM of the Raiders the past few years, just really hasn't done that great in the draft. And so what do? Their first draft pick, Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Now, I'm not saying he's not a solid prospect, but they took him at number 17. Darrisaw from Virginia Tech was still available. But even if that wasn't the right even if you like Leatherwood, it's almost unanimous consensus that they could have drafted him much later. They could have traded out of that. They could have gotten additional picks and still got their guy. Instead, they drafted Leatherwood, which was one of my head-scratching picks of the night. They did get Trevon Moehrig, who's one of the highest-rated safeties. But then after that, they're really not getting, from what I could tell, any type of top-notch talent, because by that time you're in the third round, the fourth round. You're one chance to get some more picks, really stack up that defense, because that was the problem with Vegas this year. They take an offensive tackle way above what everyone else thought he would be rated. And like Tommy said, we're not scouts. Maybe they saw something and this guy's going to be like a all-pro left tackle, but nothing that I know said that they couldn't have got him later, picked up some additional picks, and really dedicated more of those resources to the defense. Do we think Gruden's going to last his 10 years?
No.
I just think this is a disaster waiting to happen.
What a failure Las Vegas has been. Like, this draft is just like, what is going on? Like, I felt so bad for Leatherwood when the graphic came up on the draft where it said that there was like an 80% chance he'd be available at pick 66. That was messed up to do to Alex, but it highlighted the incompetence that was in Las Vegas. Honestly, Mike Mayock is probably going to be one that's out before Gruden because he is
Yes,
making
what?
some horrible decisions at the draft. And honestly, they haven't really done too much in like free agency where it's like, oh man, like they made a move to like change how it's gonna go. They're really depending on
They
Derek
cut up
Carr.
their offense. Their strength was their offensive line, and they cut or traded almost their entire starting offensive line.
I mean,
I don't get it.
I mean, the thing is like, there is something to be said about if you like your guy, go get him, right? But there's something also to be said about reaching. And I think that if you like your guy, go get him thing, you got to do that in your, like, in the sphere of appropriateness.
Yeah.
Right? Like what the Broncos did to the Dolphins, right? Like you know a guy's very likely to go. He's your guy. Trade some picks. You don't have to trade that many. Move and go, right? Or if you're going to go up to the front of the draft for like your franchise quarterback, do something like the Bears did, all that kind of stuff, right? But that's the thing. Is I mean, he is a mean king, so there's that. So that he's got that going for him. But and it's another thing if Mayock would just be hitting home runs with all these dudes, right? But he's not. So you gotta think about that too. And
They took
I just
Cleveland
think
Farrell at number 4. He hasn't.
That was horrible.
yeah.
Horrible.
So I mean, you're right. He has a track record of this. It's not like we're getting on his case now. They had Jonathan Abrams, who showed some promise, but has been unable to stay on the field. They haven't really had any of those home run picks. Max Crosby has been a great pick in the 4th round, but by that time, you're kind of like, okay, you're throwing darts a little bit.
Hell yeah.
And I agree that he will go first. Gruden will fire him and say, "Oh, it was Mayock's fault that we finished, 6-11."
Year 5. Year 5. That's
Year
what will
5.
happen. So
Yeah.
you can finish up the next 5 and be like, all right, I failed.
All right, let's go around the horn again. Let's do a winner. We'll cycle back and forth. We'll do loser. We'll do winner. So we're not getting too much negativity, and we can mix some positivity as well. So Will, back to you. Who is a winner from this year's draft?
Man. All right. I got a couple, so let's just start with one. And this is a team that I don't like. I just don't like them. And I think they're doo-doo. But I think they had a great draft, and that's the Jets. I think they wasted a lot of Darnold. I think that if you go back, Darnold was probably the better of the two between Darnold and Wilson coming out of college. But they just screwed Darnold, and they needed a fresh start. So they take Wilson. They back him up with Elijah Vera Tucker, which I think is a great pick. And then they also got Elijah Moore, first round wide receiver talent. There at the start of the first to be like that Lockett Baldwin, because I mean Zach Wilson's gonna need weapons. Zach Wilson now has more available to him than Darnold ever did. So I think they
And
really
a much better coaching staff.
Yeah, and then they also got the Michael Carter duo.
Michael Carter and Michael Carter.
One of them is better than the other one. I think that we'll see. But the Jets, I mean, hey. I was gonna say they remember, even on this show I said, hey, they've got a long way to go to be back to relevancy. I think they made some really good progress towards that. I mean, they had an underrated defense, I think, last year. I mean, they were kind of memed, but I don't think they were as bad as people thought. And now they've got a really good base to start to build around. And I think Michael Carter could surprise.
But which Michael Carter could surprise?
The running back, Michael Carter.
You're hedging your bet by putting both of those names out there. I like it. Nick, how about a winner for you from the draft?
So the winner for me is the Ravens. They definitely took their receiver that they were looking for to be that number 1 receiver that they were begging for in free agency. That was not coming due to their philosophy, which is like 54% run. Completely opposite of every team in the league. But then they followed it up with an athletic edge, Odafe Owe from Penn State. I was very impressed with his athleticism. Maybe he can learn a few things, fill in. Then Ben Cleveland. I don't know if you've seen a picture of him and his girlfriend, but he is a huge human being. And he is in the SEC, and he is used to fighting these guys that are in the NFL every week. And then the steal of the draft, 2 of them actually, is the wide receiver from Oklahoma State, Wallace, and then the the cornerback Sean Wade. Sean Wade was like graded as like a first round pick, high first round pick in the beginning of the season. I'm not sure what happened to him, but he went to Ohio State. He still started. He still got drafted. So I think that is an absolute steal for me.
All right, that's pretty. I think wide receiver was the need, and who they got with Bateman there is a slam dunk. I completely agree. And using those first round picks wisely. Once again, good organizations make good picks, and Baltimore does it year after year. Tommy,
solid.
How about a winner?
Oh, man, and I know this has to be high up on a lot of people's lists, so I'm going to continue to sing the praise that Will gave. Will, you have a lot of great takes, my friend.
I really do.
I am going to say that one of the biggest winners that I saw was the Chicago Bears, and so let me paint a picture for you. The Bears was a playoff team last year despite the terrible quarterback play, and they pretty much did it on the back of the defense. So what did they do? They spent 5 straight picks on offense and landed great players along the way. And, of course, the elephant in the room, once again, is they got Justin Fields, who, in my opinion, was the clear-cut number 2 quarterback. I think the difference between Fields and Lawrence is less significant than Fields and then everybody else. And that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong, but that's how I viewed it. And so they got him, but then they also backed it up with more great players. They got Tevin Jenkins, a great offensive lineman. Also, Larry Borum. Everything that Chicago did, similar to what Will said at the top of the show, was this might be the moment where people said, hey, wait a second, the Bears are back. And when I say that, I mean, of course, they have that great defense, but look, their offense finally took the step that we wanted to see. And the one last thing I wanted to add about the Bears is I really respect their organization because they're one of the franchises where they see something that they want and they go for it. Of course, we're looking back at the Trubisky
Sometimes
thing.
Sometimes that's Trubisky, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even when the Trubisky thing happened, I know people are making fun of him, and rightfully so now. But at the time, even when it happened, I was in there saying, hey, they like their guy. They're calling their shot, and they're saying, we're planting our flag. And I find that awesome. That's so much better than always being like, oh, we'll trade back. Oh, we'll see who falls to us. Let's play it safe. Like, you're not going to make progress. But in this opinion, it magnified what the Chicago Bears could do. They could easily see the Trubisky thing and say, no, we're not doing it. We learned our nope. Guess what? They got their guts in control because they're like, let's do it again. Let's double down. And this time we're not going to make the mistake because they had every single out to take saying, we're not going to do this again. Or mortgaging, blah, blah, blah. They did it again. But this time I say, hey, hats off to you, Chicago. You're doing a lot of things that I feel like a lot of GMs would not do. I
agree that the trade-up was bold, but I also don't think that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy had any choice. They have to. Either they don't take a quarterback and they suck and they lose their jobs, or they do take a quarterback and he sucks and they lose their jobs, or they took that quarterback, he turns out to be decent, leads them to the playoffs, and then they save their jobs for another few years. But the point is, they couldn't do nothing. It played out well. We mentioned the fact that Philadelphia traded up and took Devontae Smith means the Giants would trade back with the Bears. Maybe that doesn't happen otherwise, but kudos for them to making the move. But I don't think they had any other choice. This is like a last-ditch effort. You might as well go for the home run rookie quarterback and hope that it works out. But I do think we can all agree that in this scenario, at least, Chicago was a winner. So I'm going to be a homer for a second. Surprise, surprise. But some of you guys mentioned, I think before the show even started, that multiple draft aficionados are putting a very high grade on my Miami Dolphins. I have said on the show many times that my preferred Alabama wide receiver was Devontae Smith. I actually really like him. I'm not fond of his size, of course, Nick, but the biggest issue with Tua last year was he did not get open receivers. He was very timid with the ball. He wasn't making mistakes. He wasn't throwing a lot of interceptions, but he just was not comfortable throwing because his receivers got the least amount of separation in the league. So I wanted a receiver who had just excellent route running, who could create some separation and give better throwing windows for Tua. That being said, Jalen Waddle, what's there to be upset about? The ceiling is Tyreek Hill-esque. If he is one of those just take the top off the defenses, but also take a 5-yard slant and turn it into an 80-yard touchdown, he by himself has the potential to be a difference maker. Now, yes, there's a little bit of injury concern. We'll see how that goes, but the ceiling is so high, I can't really fault that pick. The athleticism is off the charts. And then they took Jalen Phillips at number 18, who is, in my opinion, the highest upside rusher in this draft. Had a fantastic season, filling in for Rousseau, who took 2020 off. So you needed edge rush. Your defense was very good, but it was really built back to front. It's very Patriots, very Belichick style. They've got a very, very strong defensive back. And while they did a great job up front, it was not because they were getting a lot of pressure from their pass rush. So getting a high-end pass rusher and Jalen Phillips, super excited about. Javon Holland, a little surprised they took safety this early, but once again, they're banking on athleticism. So I actually put something out on Twitter. I think it was Next Gen Stats, where they rated the athleticism for whatever criteria they use, and the Dolphins were actually rated as the #1 draft class from an athletic standpoint. And then, of course, and even Will gave me kudos on this, and this helps when you have multiple first and second round picks, is we did get offensive tackle Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame, who a lot of people, including myself, had a first-round grade on, and we got him at pick number 42 in the second round. Still got some depth. You got depth at tight end with the #2 tight end in the class, Hunter Long out of Boston College. You got another offensive tackle, Lamel Coleman, out of UMass, and then threw in a running back. I didn't think running back was such a high need. Will knows how I feel about first-round running backs. So, yeah, you have thoughts, Will?
No, I mean, I think the Eichenberg thing was pretty big. I mean, for where you got that dude is, I mean, he's not fancy, but he's the definition of a consistent statue. And I mean, apparently the Dolphins had Waddle #1 on their board the whole time. They wanted to go after that. Who knows if Tua can hit him? He'll have to hit him over the middle and let him run.
Accuracy is not Tua's issue. Tua's issue was being timid, and that he just was taking too many sacks and not throwing the ball and not taking chances. Accuracy wasn't an issue. When he threw it, he tended to put the ball where it needed to be.
Yeah.
I will chip in against this, with the slander, I should say, with Tua. I feel like the timid thing is very true, but my concern when I was doing film study on Tua after the season was, like what you said, it didn't help that Miami didn't get a lot of separation, but it also did not help that Tua literally wouldn't throw it unless they saw him wide open. And at an NFL quarterback, you have to anticipate it more, and Fitzpatrick was working with the same thing, and he would throw anticipatory balls, give him a chance, whereas Tua was like, nah, I'd rather eat the sack kind of thing, so that was concerning. But I just wanted to chip in and be like, maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing of why it happened that way, because you can't have a high percentage of the amount of separation people are getting if they're not even getting a chance kind of thing. And it looked like Devontae Parker, who I have opinions on, but say what you will, but he wins 50-50 balls here and there. But it's like he didn't get that opportunity at all.
And hey, Miami's done everything they can to give Tua a chance, right? They bring in Will Fuller. Devontae Parker doesn't have to be the guy who gets all the coverage. They're going to get Mike Gesicki back, who was injured at the end of the year. You've got Waddle now. You cannot say they don't have weapons. They've upgraded the offensive line. Their defense is already great, and I think they're going to take another step next year. So if Tua has the same issues this time next year, then I'm going to agree with everybody else that I just don't think he's making the progress he needs. But I don't think there was enough games behind him. I think he was timid because you're right. He was used to playing in Alabama where his receivers are getting 7-yard separation with his 4 first-rounders that he's throwing the ball to. Sure. But hey, why not give him one of those Alabama receivers who's got an incredible speed, quickness, and agility, and hope that he takes the next step. It's been working out a lot. The guy was coming off a very, very serious hip injury. So I could talk about my Dolphins forever, but this is not the Miami Dolphins podcast. So let's keep rolling. We will go back to the losers. Will, who do you have as your second loser from the draft?
I got the Colts, man. I got the Colts. And I think, when you look at their draft, I mean, they got a good pick in Pay, right? Kwity Paye. They also are very dependent on that pick coming through. They took Odenigbo as a off an Achilles injury. Who knows if he's explosive as he's going to be. Costanzo retired. They really needed to address that. Didn't take a lineman until their final pick of the draft. And they also took a remarkably average quarterback in Sam from Texas. So to go behind their remarkably average quarterback that they just traded for. So
Tommy might have some thoughts on that remarkable average quarterback.
Probably sure does. So I mean, he should be happy now that they got out of that situation. So I don't know, man. I don't think the Colts really did for as good as Ballard and Reich combo seemed to be. You would think they would have gotten more out of this draft than what they did.
I agree that I think offensive tackle was their biggest need, and the fact that they didn't address it till late is concerning. But Ballard has hit on so many draft picks that I'm like, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the opposite of Mayock. Like, I just expect Mayock to screw up, and he's clearly, I think, doing that. Whereas Ballard's like, I don't know that I like that pick, but they seem to hit home runs. It's a better run organization. Let's keep it rolling because we do still have more losers and winners to get through, and we don't want to have this go too long. So, Nick, we'll turn it over to you. Who is your second loser of the draft?
Houston Texans, man. They were picking up some puzzle pieces, just they like it's like their vase broke, and they're like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to put this team together? They took Davis Mills in the later rounds. They went for a big name receiver, two big name receivers, Brevin Jordan and Nico Collins. But who's going to throw to them? Davis Mills. I'm not really excited about that. It just seems like they're just trying to pick up the pieces after the debacle of the Deshaun Watson and whatever is going on there. Was not impressed by their draft and definitely did not try and make it better that they didn't have any draft picks. So
it doesn't help when your first pick is in the third round.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like the old Washington team. They would never have first or second round picks. But I'm just really disappointed in Houston. It seems like they're not even trying. They're just trying to weather the storm, get through this year, get through Deshaun Watson, and then they'll start going again.
Yeah, they do have Tyrod Taylor, but I mean, he's solid. But he's
he's good. He's good. Justin Herbert replaced him in the second game. Yeah, he's good.
Well,
poor Tyrod.
I mean,
he got his lung punctured by a team doctor.
All I'm saying is that the doctor probably had an anytime snap for Justin Herbert for that game. He was like, all right, I'm going to do this real fast. And, it's really unfortunate what happened to Tyrod. I feel bad, but it's not like he's going to light up the scoreboard.
He's not a franchise-changing quarterback. I completely agree. And I'm still of the mind that no organization is run worse than the Texans. I think that's a pretty easy take to make out there. I'm fascinated to see what it is. If nothing else, then just the chaos factor. I'm fascinated to see what exactly happens for the Texans in 2021. Tommy, second loser of the draft.
Yeah, I'll make mine real quick. I was just really confused with what Seattle was trying to do. They obviously didn't have a first-round pick because they never do. And when they do have it, they wasted on a pick like Rashad Penny. Ooh, that was mean thing to say, but they just declined his fifth-year option.
Correct.
Yeah,
yep.
They just declined it. So, I mean, even at the time, I thought it was a reach. And that's very unjustifiable for someone like me to say. But, hey, the results kind of speaks for itself. And then what did they do? Pete Carroll complains about wanting to run the ball more, so genius. Let's draft a wide receiver, and not just that, let's also reach on that wide receiver with the earliest pick they have, which is number 56, which was in the second round. They don't have another pick into the fourth round, so what do? They take Dwayne Eskridge, and this is not a knock on Dwayne Eskridge. It's just really confusing because a lot of people came to their defense saying, oh, they're trying to get speed or they're trying to do this and that. I'm like, well, first of all, Tyler Lockett is pretty fast. Second of all, DK Metcalf is incredibly fast. So, I just don't understand what Pete Carroll, what he's saying he wants to do and then what he then does go out and do doesn't really make a lot of sense for me. So, they had very limited draft capital. So, I was really interested to see what they do because obviously right now they think that their window is still open. So, they want to go all in. But then they make some questionable moves in order to get there. And I feel like this wasn't that extra move that they needed to make to kind of go over that hump to be like, all right, Seattle, there's that dark horse now.
And like the Texans, it really doesn't help when you have, I think Seattle had, 3 draft picks total? So, they're one of those teams that they just don't value the draft picks the same. They don't mind dishing them out for the occasional Jadeveon Clowney deal or drafting a guy like Rashad Penny who they don't pick up the fifth. So, completely agree with you there. My second loser is a team I had a trouble picking as a loser because they've been such a successful franchise for so long, and that is the New Orleans Saints. I talked about in our mock draft special episode that the beauty of being a team like the Saints is you don't really have a lot of needs, so who do you draft? Well, you should probably draft best player available. Well, through a number of different draft analysis that I saw, as far as value, they picked the player who was the worst value for the first round, and that is Houston defensive end Peyton Turner at number 28. there was a chart that was released on Twitter. I don't remember what the source was, where it was like a graph chart where they showed each pick according to what the consensus value was. And Peyton Turner threw the chart way off because a lot of people had him as a third, maybe late third, fourth round type of prospect, and he was picked at the end of the first. So that's questionable, number one. Number two, they drafted linebacker Pete Werner, who's a solid linebacker out of Ohio State, but he is not really the next generation of linebacker. NFL Network's profile of him says, he could be a good solid backup, but he's not really a game-changing guy. And then you draft, really the other pick to discuss is that they did draft a quarterback, but they drafted Notre Dame quarterback Ian Book, who, yes, he won a lot of games at Notre Dame, but I don't think he was the reason. I've seen them play, being a Florida State fan. You know, we played Notre Dame a number of times, and never thought that Book was a game changer. So why put a quarterback with that? I didn't see any of their entire draft haul that just wowed me. And maybe, it's Sean Payton. They'll figure it out. I'm not saying, unlike Houston, that the organization is in trouble, but just wasn't loving their draft. Okay, so let's go around. We'll do one more winner list real quick, and then try to wrap this up. Will, who is your second winner from the draft?
Let's see.
I don't know what your suspenseful pause is for. Are you trying to come up with something clever? Did you not do the homework? Do you not have a team ready?
No. I did. I think it's the Browns. I'm excited for the Browns this year. I think they. I close my names, which is why it's funny because there's no way I can pronounce their linebacker's name from memory. But they took Newsome opposite Denzel Ward to shore up the defensive secondary, and they also Speedy Cat at linebacker. Long name, forget his name. But some really good value there, and I think that kind of closed what they needed to do. And they also took Schwartz from Auburn, who ran a 4.26 to kind of give some speed to their offense as well. They kind of up and down with the Odell Beckham situation, and they got Jarvis Landry, and they've never really hit on that third guy. They've always had like these dudes that kind of sort of should have been good, like Higgins and some of the other ones. Really excited to see what Schwartz can do there. So I think between those three, they should really be a contender this year because they address their biggest needs and weaknesses. And I think
on the Browns.
They have one of the best backs in the NFL in Nick Chubb. Fantastic running back.
And to have Hunt as a compliment there, that team is built very well to do an even longer playoff run possibly than they did this season. Let's keep it rolling. Nick, your second winner of the 2021 draft.
My second winner is the Detroit Lions. They're a real easy team to shit on. It sucks that they've been having a lot of struggles.
Our producer Anthony is smiling right now.
But I feel bad for him. I really like Barry Sanders, but that's been like the only exciting thing besides Megatron and Stafford, and now Stafford's gone. So, a new age is coming in, but they started off with Sewell, who, I couldn't believe that he fell that low. It shows that there was a big run on quarterbacks, skilled players, and it kind of let the tackle fall to them. And then they picked up the Washington defensive tackle, Levi Onwuzurike. He likes messing people up.
I think it's Onwuzurike.
Onwuzurike, yeah. He likes messing people up. That's good. It's good to hear.
He bites kneecaps. That's what they want, a bunch of kneecap biters there in Detroit.
Yeah, you could see Dan Campbell had his fingerprints all over this draft. And that's good to see, with the new coach coming in. Let him change the culture. It's not like the culture there was great to start with. So, but the one pick that I'm really excited about is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I feel like at USC wide receivers don't get their due. They're still some of the top athletic receivers, and his dad and brother Equanimeous St. Brown, those guys are like bodybuilders. It comes from a very athletic family. I think that he's going to do wonders in the system there. So I think he's going to be able to steal for them. But my winner is the Detroit Lions.
Nice. I think all signs so far could show a nice turnaround, and they seem to be doing things the right way. And we
can't get any worse. Can't get any worse.
See, that is true. Good point. Only up from here. Tommy, who is your second winner of the draft?
This was also really, really easy. I feel like it has to be the Chargers, right? Because 1 year after selecting their franchise quarterback and offensive rookie of the year, Justin Herbert, what do you need to do? You got to protect him. The Chargers' offensive line was terrible, and they were gifted. Rashawn Slater fell into their laps, and a lot of people, I didn't, but this is how highly people had Rashawn Slater. Some people actually had him above Penei Sewell. And once again, I didn't, but that's not a knock on him. It was still close, but that's how good some people had him. And the Chargers were able to kind of scoop him up. And then not just that, they got a great value in Asante Samuel Jr. And not only was it a value, but Brandon Staley has kind of said that he wanted to do this new off-ball zone defense, and that just screams Asante Samuel Jr., who's really good at playing the ball, kind of having his eyes in the backfield, and just, I'm not saying just like his dad being instinctive in zone coverage or anything, but the one thing that I would say that when I was kind of looking back at Asante Samuel Jr.'s tape is he's just good when the ball's in the air. He's just as good as a wide receiver playing it and things like that. And if you have, pretty much your eyes in the backfield at all times and kind of doing this off-ball zone defense that LA is trying to do, it's going to be kind of scary.
Yeah, and once again, another team that they didn't have to do anything special to get that stud tackle to protect their quarterback, and they just had to just wait their turn, and it just kind of fell into their laps. So we will wrap it up with my winner, and it is an NFC East team, and it is the New York Giants, and here's why. First of all, I think they would have been possibly on my winner list simply because of the deal they made. They only had to trade back 9 spots. They picked up a first and a fourth from Chicago next year, and there's been a lot of talk about the value in 2022 and how much higher it will be simply because there will be more tape. They will be more easier to evaluate. There will be a combine. There's going to be none of these opt-outs. There are going to be players with more games to play and more experience, and that there was just so much uncertainty with the 2021 draft that the 2022 draft picks are even more valuable. So the fact that the Giants picked up an extra first-rounder, kudos to Gettleman for trading back. Maybe that was it. The surprise at trading back just got him in the winners list. But I actually like the players, especially at the top of their draft. I actually like Tony here. I know Nick mentioned earlier he didn't think this was a great fit, but here's why. I think the style of receiver that Tony plays, kind of that wrecking ball running back style, break tackles type of guy. Think of your Brandon Ayuk, your Tebow Samuel. I think that complements the other receivers they have. You got Slayton, being kind of the speedy deep threat. They just signed blanking from
Galladay.
Detroit.
Yeah, Kenny Galladay.
Kenny Galladay, who's really more of a contested catch type of guy. You've got Evan Ingram, who's got the injury problems, but he's that speedy, high-end receiver across the middle. And you still have Sterling Shepard, who really plays that slot role well. So I think getting a guy with Tony's talent, once again, you put all the chips in for Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, and like Tua, you're really not going to have any excuses after another season with all the weapons they have. And then they end up getting one of the there is a number of draft experts who actually put Azeez Ojulari as one of their 1 or 2 top pass rushers out of Georgia, and he falls all the way to 50. So we were just talking about how the Saints drafted Peyton Turner out of Houston at number 28, almost twice as many picks later, and the Giants actually get what a lot of people say who could end up being one of the top 2 or 3 pass rushers in this draft. They get him all the way back at 50. And then I really like UCF quarterback Aaron Robinson. A lot of people had him as a second-round defensive back, and the Giants got him in the 3rd round. So you got a lot of talent at the top of your draft. You picked up extra draft picks, including an extra first-rounder in 2022. Yeah, hand it to Gettleman. Hand it to the old guy. He actually did something right, and that's why I put them in my winners. So real quick, does anybody have any last thoughts, any comments as we wrap up our recap of the 2021 NFL Draft?
Dallas sucks.
I'm excited to see if they actually trade Julio in June. We got about a month later. I mean, the take of Kyle Pitts, was expected, but I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I guess if they really are having thoughts about trading Julio, that's what you do, is to go get somebody like that. But I mean, I love him. He's my guy at Florida. But number 4 overall seems kind of high.
Very high.
I was thinking maybe in the 7 through 10 range. For somebody like that.
Here's a question: if he ends up being a Travis Kelce type would you, knowing who Travis Kelce is, would you draft him at number 4 overall?
This is the thing in the NFL, dude. Stephon Diggs was nobody, right? And then he's just, and Tyreek Hill. Like, think of all the names that you hear about in the NFL. I mean, these are people that it's so hard to scout people for the league. Very rarely do we get like an Andrew Luck who's just like, this dude plug and play stud, right? You knew coming out he was going to be good, and by God, he's good. Christian McCaffrey. Hell, if you were to redraft today, Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry are second-round picks, right? Would they be in today's NFL? Who knows, man? I mean, so it's really hard to say. Of course, right? If he's going to be like that, but who knows? I mean, he's coming out. He's all world right now coming into the league. He better be Travis Kelce for number 4 overall. He better be. Especially with Matt Ryan, and if you let Julio go, I mean, dude better not block. You know what I mean? He better be going down the field.
So we will obviously be following the Julio Jones speculation. It was another thing that broke right around the draft. No concrete information other than Atlanta said that it's something they would consider, so it could be a reality in the near future. But I want to go ahead and wrap this up. We obviously, as I mentioned, we will have the Flavor of the Week episode where for the first time we will do our team deep dive then. It'll be of the Dallas Cowboys. Both Nick and Tommy will be back for the Flavor of the Week. They'll be sticking around with us, but I want to go ahead and thank them for coming on the main NFL episode. Make sure to check out Nick at Spoon of Zeke on Twitter. If you're a fan of the NFL and you're not following him, what's wrong with you? Do it right away. And make sure to check out Tommy's podcast, You Dive Deep, which is a season 2. He mentioned he just recorded, so it'll be debuting soon. Make sure, as always, subscribe, tell all your friends, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Check us out on Twitter at OfficialPPPod. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. If you want to join our Discord community, you will see the link in the episode description. Thanks for listening, and stick around for the Flavor of the Week.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Pigskin Party Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. We'll catch you in the next Pigskin Party.